Emily and Peter are not here.
Hello and welcome to Not Here. We are a bi-weekly podcast with me, I'm Emily, and Peter's back there. And we podcast about our life living in China and making videos and stuff. So yeah, that's what we do. This week is not a video, but I started trying acupuncture for my allergies because I read that was a thing to do.
How often is that? We hear about it for back pain.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I've never actually heard about it for allergies.
Well, actually, my mom looked it up because when I was home in America over the summer, this gets into the medical weeds, but so in China, they have loratadine, but they do not have loratadine D, which is the thing that I need. So when I was in America, I got a doctor's note to bring a year's worth over to China, because the reason I needed the note is because the decongestant is stuff that you make meth out of. So it's regulated both in America and in China.
Sweet meth.
But it is the thing that works for my allergies. And I was explaining to my mom, who was skeptical, not that I would make meth, but that just my claim that the Chinese don't have allergies, but she looked it up and they have allergies at a much lower rate than Europeans and Americans do. No data on Africans. But so while she was looking that up, she saw that people sometimes do acupuncture for allergies as well. And just because I've had terrible allergies for almost my whole life, I thought, give it a try. Anything could help. And I don't know if it's helping. So I saw the guy, and
So how long has that been?
So Wednesday.
The acupuncture or the loratadine medicine from home?
The medicine from home has been since I got back in August. And that's helping. And my allergies actually aren't bad at the moment. But it could always be better. And so...
we're in rainy season, so...
Yeah, and I also, had the idea, I've got time now, why not try it out? After I started the sessions, I did a little more reading and found it's not... allergies don't get cured, ever. And acupuncture does not claim to cure it, but it does provide some relief, they say. So I think... If I feel like this works and I were to do it again, I would wait till a time when I felt like my allergies were really bad, and even with medicine, I was having a tough time. As for is it working, I can't say. So I went to the doctor, not a doctor, he's a technician, but he is at the medical college hospital. And I told him, I have allergies, and I heard... That's literally what I said. I have allergies, and I heard acupuncture can help. And he's like, of course it can. So he asked me...
This is what I've been waiting for. This is my whole... as a technician.
Yeah. Because that wing of the hospital is not super popular. Whereas, your doctors and my asthma doctor see,
the areas where people don't walk are populated by...
Yeah, they see, hundreds of people an hour, and this guy sees, a couple dozen people an hour. So even among the Chinese in our town, at this place, it's not the most popular function.
And we're covered in vegetation and mold and everything that you would think would set that off.
But as I said, the Chinese have much lower rates of seasonal hay fever type allergies than I do. I have 100% rate. But so then he asked me some questions, and then he prescribed a course of treatment that was 5 sessions over 2 weeks. And then also he was like, what's your work schedule like? So it is very much a pragmatic, you're not going to miss work to come do this. And so I told him I could come 3 times a week, and it was Wednesday. So he's like, how about you come Wednesday, Friday, this week, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week. So I don't know if that was a medical decision or just
He was just lonely on those days?
Yeah, I don't know. But then, that was the evaluation, and then we do the needles, and it's weird.
How many needles?
I kind of counted. It's hard because I keep my eyes closed because 2 of them are right here. So it is like, and I don't have a thing about needles, but it's like staring up at 2 needles isn't nice. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. At least 13.
So is it kind of like the cups where you're like, there's things being put in areas, but you're not quite sure exactly?
I mean, you definitely...
You feel like pulling and stuff on in certain...
Yeah, I mean, you definitely... You feel the pinch when it goes in, and that's not so bad. What's uncomfortable for me... So he does... You don't have to use electricity, but he does use electricity. So he electrifies some of the needles, which is a thing. In the first session, the one in my shin, like, it was the way it was hitting my muscle made my, like, toe keep twitching, which that was really uncomfortable. And I think what I said to you was it felt like I was being kicked very lightly in the shin, but over and over and over. So it's not so much like that it was painful, but just like, I'd like that to stop.
Quit it.
And that's kind of how I would describe the whole feeling for me. That it's not the pressure of the pins, but something is happening. So whether you believe in chi or not, sticking a bunch of needles in you does something, and it's not just the pressure of the needles. There's like an energy.
How long does this energy go on for?
Like half an hour. And then...
Because sometimes I get like massages here for half an hour, and it's like, all right, this is about enough.
Yeah.
And that actually feels mostly good.
Yeah.
Half an hour is a long time to have a continuous, like, okay, stop.
Yeah, and that's... I had acupuncture in the U.S. once before, but it was more like wellness acupuncture, which is... It felt great afterwards, and the procedure itself wasn't quite so uncomfortable. This is just... And that's... Like, I was doing some more reading in English, and, like, acupuncture is not supposed to hurt, although some people can have, like, different kinds of reaction. And again, I wouldn't say what's happening I would call, like, pain, but it is, like, I'm very happy when it's finished. And then I feel really peaceful afterwards, but it also could be because to get through, like, oh, I'm feeling so uncomfortable, I, like, really concentrate on my breath and, like, meditate for half an hour while that's happening, so I could be feeling good because of the meditation or the acupuncture or both. So it's a weird situation, and it's unlike like the massage and cupping. If you don't know what cupping is, so it's acupressure, I think, and they take these like glass cups, light a what's that?
There's like a gel.
A match?
Yeah, but there's like a gel fluid or something that's inside that's flammable that you match and it...
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was heating the air. But I guess, yeah, there is like a big...
Yeah.
So it like superheats the air and then they vacuum seal it to your back, and so it starts like pulling your skin
out.
Yeah. And there's like a whole Chinese medical explanation about toxins, which I don't buy. But it also then feels like a deep pressure massage, and so that feels really good. But I'm having a little trouble accepting, like, I don't believe in chi, although I can feel that something is happening energetic-wise in my body. There's not like a spa comfort component to this like there is to the acupressure. So that's where I'm skeptical, maybe. Although, I mean, there's studies online in English, or articles about studies. I maybe could track down the specific studies, but the articles range from throw away your antihistamines, acupuncture really works, to, well, the studies aren't imperfectly structured, but there seems to be some evidence that acupuncture does something, but it might be placebo, down to like, it's bunk, don't try it.
Well, I mean, I think it always is. There's a little bit of something in everything, and it depends on who's selling it to you.
Yeah,
and how much they want to do. Because you know, there's any like don't eat meat, don't eat eggs, eat only meat. Like there's always some kind of somebody is like do 100%
Right.
with something because it proves that they're so awesome at something. Then like maybe if you tried a little bit of cupping and a little bit of medicine and like don't actually go out on a bad pollen day, then maybe you might feel okay, but you're never going to be 100% or cured.
Right. Well, and there's flaws. The flaws are everywhere. But like there can be, like with these nutrition studies, nutrition science is really hard to interpret because it's hard to structure perfectly scientifically valid experiments because you ethically can't tell people what not to eat or what to eat that's healthy. And even if you could,
and also you're good.
Like you ethically can't put a person on a diet that you know might be bad for them.
Right.
But even if you could ethically control what people eat, practically you're not going to get people to follow that. Nutrition science is dependent on self-reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next layer is science journalism and medical reporting is iffy sometimes. And so people see these studies and misunderstand them, or like the best headline is this, but that's somewhat misleading for what the study actually tells you. Yeah. So there's all kinds of stuff. But I think the literature on acupuncture shows there's something about it that does something. Like I think especially for pain management, Western science has found it actually works pretty well.
Outside of placebo.
Yeah, so it is like I don't have to believe in it to try it, and if it does something good, that's great, and if it doesn't do anything, then I've had an interesting experience.
Right.
Because like I was saying to you, it also like knocks me out for a little bit of the afternoon afterwards. Like I come home and I need a nap.
It's kind of trauma.
Yeah, it's really hard. But I do want to finish out the 5 senses. No, the 5 sessions, because then I'll like have completed my experiment.
Yeah.
Because another person
Wait for the findings.
Another person online says sometimes it does make you feel worse before it feels better. So if he said it's 5 sessions to finish the treatment.
Yeah. Then if you keep getting sick, stop.
Yeah. Well, and then, if I feel desperate enough, I might try it again. I think I'm leaning towards...
Maybe not a lonely guy in a dark corridor.
Well, I mean, he's got his own thing going on. He smokes though too, so when he's placing the needles on my face, I can he doesn't smoke in the room, but I can smell on his hands that he has cigarettes. He has been near cigarettes.
Well, yeah, with the smoking culture here, it's pretty prominent. Like most massage parlors that you're going into, oftentimes are smoky, and what are you gonna do? Yeah,
people smell like smoke. But yeah, so that's a kind of experiment I'm doing these days.
What else we got?
My gym is something weird is happening.
Speaking of health and
speaking of health. And I'm so bummed. So I'm WeChat friends with some of the staff because we communicate that way. And they are either locked out or on strike or both because the owners have stopped paying them, which is like such a bummer for them. I'm totally on the side of labor. They should get paid for the job they do. They all work really hard, and I like working with them. They're very professional. They do a good job. They should get paid. This is the Body Art Gym on Chongqing Main Avenue. The owners are not paying their staff, and they should be paid. And I kind of had a clue something was up last Sunday. I went to yoga class, and the electricity was out. and the people in the yoga class were having some kind of conversation with the teacher that I didn't understand the whole thing, but I could tell it was something about like
Something heated?
not heated, but like the teacher was like, yeah, I don't know how long this is gonna go on, and I thought it was that the management kept changing the days that the teachers got to teach, and so now I think it's probably about like we're gonna go on strike. So it's a bummer for them, but it's a bummer for me because I like going to the gym now, and I like these lessons, and I've gotten so muscly and strong.
And it's a busy gym too, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty busy gym. They just finished the pool for the summer season, and they had a lot of people come in for the pool. So I mean, anybody can be broke, but I think like the business is going well. So if they are broke, it's because they mishandled their money. But like they did a big business with the pool. And now I'm re-examining that boxing thing where they were like, give us 24,000 kwai today.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to do that? And then you can come for a year. I would be so mad if I had actually followed through with that.
Even if it wasn't the instructor the instructor may have had like muscle in from management to like.
Well, I think they get a lot of pressure to sell like that.
Yeah, but I mean, extra pressure for some reason that they were like, whether it's.
Yeah.
Sell this will be a great deal for you, we'll give you some benefits or blah blah blah, only to turn out really it was like, because we're skipping town as soon as we get that.
Right, which is weird, like, maybe you just had a windfall from conning people into boxing lessons that you were never going to deliver on, and you built a pool, but like, now you have a pool, why not stay and like make money from that pool?
No, who knows? Maybe they made enough money that they're like, I'm out. I'm starting a new business.
Yeah, so it's tough to say. Like, did they skip town? Are they? What's going to happen? I don't really know.
The business world, not even just because of China, but in general, is always businesses shut and close and open and reopen in different ways. I just don't. It doesn't. The logic of how you run a business seems insane. Yeah,
but I mean, it seems short-sighted because this gym has been around for 4 or 5 years.
Which is pretty long.
Yeah, so like if this is in fact what happened, I mean, mismanagement is far more likely. But to just like skip town with all this money.
Right. And even like the trainers, like Coco is a celebrated Olympic person or something?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if it is Coco, but there's someone on the staff was like on the Olympic team, and Coco is a bodybuilder, and she like wins competitions.
And some of your coaches were like people that are from like other provinces that have been brought in.
Yeah. So it's not like this was any kind of 2-bit operation. Even the boxing, they brought in like a boxing coach from Beijing to set up the program. So it seemed like, and they have like pictures on the wall, they're doing more renovations. So I mean, this seems like maybe they overreached. Now that I'm saying all this out loud. They just built a pool, they just started a boxing program, they're working on more renovations. Oh, something happened. Which, I mean, I hope they work it out on so many levels. From, I like my trainer, I want him to get paid. I like my trainer, I would like to keep working with him. I have stuff in my locker there, including sneakers and a pretty expensive Kiehl's moisturizer. All of which is replaceable. But I like going there.
Yeah, it's you said there's other gyms in the neighborhood, but like but you like that one. It's right in your path of.
And then I also like if that's the standard, I don't want to have to like join another gym and then like keep looking over my shoulder for when they're gonna go under or whatever. So it's a bummer all around. It's also a bummer. I went running this morning just out in the park, and then I took a shower at home. I hate our shower at home. I miss my shower at the gym. The gym shower is so nice. It's so relaxing. Our shower is awful. But yeah, so that's like real news you can use there. Other news that's less fraught is that my plants are doing so well. My basil keeps growing, and we're maybe gonna harvest again in another week or two and have some more pesto. And then I have a mystery plant that the package said in English that it was Greek basil, and in Chinese that it was carrots. And then it started to grow, and I have no idea what it is, but it does not look like carrots. And then a third plant was red pepper, hot pepper, and I planted them 2 weeks ago. And then I planted first, and then read up on like how you should plant pepper, and it's recommended you sprout it on a paper towel first, which I didn't do. I just dumped it in the dirt. So I kind of thought they were just duds and not gonna grow, but I got one little sprout today, sprouting out of the ground, or the dirt anyway, the pot. So I'm so excited about that. And it made me look into, because here's the whole thing about gardening is like a whole world. I had no idea. I mean, I had some idea, but like,
who knew?
Especially because we're eating the basil. You have to, and they're in pots, you have to replenish the soil. And they sell fertilizer, plant food at the grocery store, but I don't know if it's edible. Because for house plants, it can be any kind of chemical.
Oh, yeah.
But if it's basil and we're going to eat it, it does have to be not poison to us. So I started looking into composting, which had the benefit of being up my alley of environmentally friendly. And then I realized I don't know anything about anything. I had a whole like crisis of confidence. Because first of all, is there like recycling or anything in the city I live in? I don't know. I think so. I mean, we don't have to sort in our house, but I think that the people who collect the garbage in the apartment buildings sort for us.
Yeah, we see the trucks going up and down the streets with the styrofoams and the cardboards and the cans.
Yeah, because there's money in it, so people are incentivized.
I would assume.
And then even food waste, when we're at restaurants and when we worked at the middle school, we could see like food waste is collected in a separate jar.
The pig slops.
Yeah, the pig slop. And it's not, it wouldn't be compost because it's all food waste, which includes meat and oils and stuff. And you can't compost that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's some of the wondering fears that we had as we saw truckloads of pig slop going out in buckets of the cafeteria. And where does that go? Only to find that that's pretty much back to the pig for them to eat.
I guess, yeah. I mean,
what our students kind of
guessed. Which is that's still being recycled and whatever.
I think we all just kind of stepped back and went like, oh, the pigs are eating the pig leftovers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If the pigs are eating pork leftovers, then that's terrible. But yeah. So I had like this whole fantasy where I would start composting, and then because I only have 3 pots for houseplants, the amount of food waste and compostable material Peter and I would make would be more than that. So, but if I donated it to our apartment complex and they could use it, what if I started a whole composting program in Luzhou? And like, first of all, they might already have that. Second of all, maybe they don't have that and they would just not be interested. Third of all, looking into what composting actually is, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And like, you need worms to do it right. And if you don't have worms, don't start it in the winter because it should be really hot.
Cold worms?
Yeah. And then, I just got overwhelmed by like all the choices. Because I'm overwhelmed already again. Because the fact of it being inconvenient is not a reason not to do it, because saving the planet is going to be inconvenient because the planet burning us all to death and not producing any crops for us anymore and creating superstorms and destroying all our property is going to be way worse. And
already is.
Unlimited consumption, it's not working out. So we do have to change some things. But then, like, is composting enough? Of course it's not. of course, what we need is systemic change.
But in the meantime, what else are you doing?
Yeah. Well, and then the thing is, so for apartment composting, I found there's a system called bokashi, which is
Delicious.
It sounds Japanese and is reputed to be Japanese. I couldn't find. I mean, all the information I was looking at was in English and then in Chinese. Because it turns out anything that's trendy in America is also trendy in China. When I started looking up the word compost in Chinese, bokashi buckets all came up. And bokashi is something where you take all your food scraps, even meats, and you pour this microorganism on them, not worms. And the microorganisms kind of go through and digest, and what they do is ferment the food, and then you can dump it in your, if you had a compost pile, you could dump it in your compost pile. This is where it gets controversial and weird. Or you can make something called a soil factory, which is
in your city apartment building.
So like the bucket would be this, this big. And then if you get a Tupperware full of dirt and then mix the fermented food in with the dirt, then you have, that'll break down.
Sounds like some kind of like.
I mean, it's like a big project.
Blade Runner. Like, you don't want to live in some Mobius skyscraper building with people with their own like bio factories in the apartment cubicle next door to you.
Right, yeah, it could be creating.
That sounds zombie star, right?
Right. Well, and the fact is, it's an area where like science meets just
horror.
No, science meets enthusiasts, and so there's a lot of discussion that is maybe people who know something are saying something, or maybe some people who don't know anything are talking out of their butts. Like. Another thing another thing I got hooked on was, so food waste in a landfill doesn't decompose properly because it's all packed in, and so it doesn't get like air, and worms don't crawl through it and organisms don't crawl through it to break it down. So it's part of the methane problem of that landfills just create a bunch of methane. But when food breaks down in a compost pile, and this is not my scientific opinion, this is a summary of information I read. So when food breaks down in a compost pile, it doesn't create methane. And then one guy was like, but it's an anaerobic, bokashi is an anaerobic process, so that's also making methane. And then there was like a big back and forth of like, and then I realized like, oh, nobody here knows what they're talking about. So there's always the problem of environmental stuff of like, you can have good intentions, but your good intentions don't mean you're doing a good thing that's helpful.
Frankenstein again?
Yeah, I mean, that's. I don't think Frankenstein had good intentions. That was the whole point.
Oh, really?
Dr. Frankenstein was taking on the attributes of a god giving life to.
Isn't that where all like evil geniuses start them? Like,
I think the point was that Dr. Frankenstein did not have good intentions with the thing he was creating. It was hubris, and then he dumped his creation once it was too scary, and he didn't like deal with his actions. There's no good intentions.
It turned, but I thought that was like and maybe it's not in Frankenstein, but that's where the impetus of the shunned genius who decides that his godlike ability of science and nature and understanding, and tries to fix humanity, and they become evil leaders and
I don't know.
Create robot armies and
is mad scientist benevolence the same as good intentions, or is it just naked hubris?
Or good movies.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know, and then now I'm paralyzed about every decision ever because of, am I helping or hurting? I mean, at least I walk to work, so there's that. And we don't have a dryer, so two big things.
We don't do a lot.
We don't do a lot
to help.
we do as little as possible, so we can help.
That's my motto.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's all so complicated, and then like, because it also would be like a lot of extra effort, and if it's extra effort that I could know is helpful, then like, okay, go for it. But if it's extra effort that is unnecessary because Luzhou already is doing something, or is also contributing to other problems, then I'm also wasting my own time, which is also a precious resource.
We were surprised right from the get-go when we got here that the students that we were teaching, how many classes and performances and speeches and contests that they had for all their writing stuff that we had to judge were based on.
Oh yeah, the kids are thinking about environmentalism.
Yeah.
But in a kid way, so it's not like.
Yeah. Well,
that's also like good intentions
right
that
now
are doing a whole lot.
We're looking at that young woman as our savior because she got mad at all of us.
But she's actually doing something. She's not.
These kids are doing something.
She's not writing. She's not just writing an essay. I mean, yeah, but they're.
I mean, hopefully some of them are going off to.
Maybe. I don't know.
Not much hope in these kids.
I feel paralyzed and like we're doomed. I hope this is helping you, my audience. So yeah, that was my pepper. Was good news, and then like existential despair is really underlying all of that.
Just one little pepper. That's all.
Yeah.
You're clinging to at this point.
In the realm of youth being our future, on my run in the park this morning, I did see a little kid out with a piece of paper watching fish and I think trying to sketch them, which was, a nice little moment.
It's a nice way to spend your Sunday afternoon.
I like when you can look at people and see a whole narrative unfolding of what they're doing with their day.
Yeah. People watching is the best.
I guess that's what that's called. Another thing that's it's gonna go to a dire place is our grocery store is installing. You still have to be careful. Right now we are dealing with a situation where there is a measure of safety, but it still is. We're like 111119. I think I have to. This actually turned out to be, I think, a somewhat devious scam. But I'm part of the reason why people feel secure. But we're not gonna fall for your traps, Mr. Taobao. I'm starting over. Self-checkouts. Which is, in itself is not dire, but in terms of AI is coming for all of our jobs is dire. But I don't know how I feel about them. I mean, I like them because this is the thing.
Have you used them?
Oh yeah, I've used them a couple times. They're usually the line is shorter because people don't know how to use them, so they avoid them.
And there's usually a cashier person that's helping.
Yeah, and they found in America when they were implementing self-checkouts, you always need at least one person manning the station to help people because they don't know what they're doing. But it's one person for now. It's 9 stations versus 9 actual cashiers doing those jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to use my frequent shopper card at the machine.
Well, here it's actually great because then you can just take all those people off the register and put them over in the soap.
That's true. Chinese supermarkets still have plenty of jobs.
You can't get down one aisle without 20 people trying to sell you a toothpaste.
Do you need help? Do you need this toothpaste? I see you just brought a toothbrush. Do you want a toothpaste too?
Have these other toothpastes also with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of help in the houseware section of the supermarket. But another big flaw of the machine, so you can.
The flaw of the machine. This is your new concept album.
Yeah, so they don't take cash, of course, and they don't have a credit card. But everybody here uses WeChat. WeChat. WePay, which is part of the WeChat app. And there's 2 functions on WeChat to pay, so you can either bring up your own barcode and have it scanned by the machine and then it pays through that, or you can enter your own password on the machine, but the machine face is this big, so if you're over there entering your
Everyone.
password, I can see what your password is. So that seems like a flaw. So I don't do that way. I do the barcode scan.
Although I don't know about the big city, but we're pretty far out enough where people watching over your shoulder at the ATM is.
That's true.
fairly normal.
Everybody's peeking at your passwords.
Not even in a stealing way. It's just what else? I'm standing behind you. What else am I gonna do?
What are you doing?
Yeah, give me a show. What numbers you got?
Although I feel like I just did a computer thing. At the computer store, they know that etiquette of like don't look when someone's.
Oh yeah.
Which, coming of age, I mean, there were ATMs when I was a kid, but like cell phones really started to be a thing, and that everybody had their own computer was starting to be a thing when I went to college. And so there was like, I remember in one of my computer classes that someone had to make a mention of like, it's considered polite to make an obvious show of looking away while someone's putting in their password. So don't stare at people while they're putting their password in. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know.
Well, that only needs to happen a couple of times in the history of the beginning of ATMs back in America to be like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
If somebody's not behind the line, then you should totally freak out and call a cop because they're probably stealing your family's riches.
Right.
I got $25 in my account. Like, never something I'm ever worried about. But
yeah, but I mean, you know, there are scammers everywhere.
yeah, but there's less here, at least in that kind of sense.
Well, not at the gym. There's
well,
not.
That's big money, not little money.
Oh yeah, I mean, are people gonna rip you off at the grocery store?
And somebody snagged your pocketbook at a restaurant when we first got here. But
That's
also
true.
our cleaning lady just handed us a stack of money that we just left laying around.
Oh yeah, I forgot I had a fat stack of cash that I meant to bring to the bank, and she's like, she gave it to you.
Yeah,
because-
you went out, and I'm just sitting here working, and she walked over with this big pile of money, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Oh, I'm like, "Thank you so much. I guess." That's rude for us to even like leave it out.
Just like poke it between the couch cushions. Are you a thief? Yeah, I mean, for the most part, people aren't stealing from me, but it really only takes one.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about basic personal safety and stuff, and you get used to it really quickly in China that like you just kind of forget to like check over your shoulder, check your pocketbook. You don't really think about it as much as like back home. I remember like whatever you carry, like walking around New York City, like I've never took my bag off me, like in the subway, but at work it's like even at my feet, like. But here, like we had a thought of yesterday at the coffee shop. Like, do we leave all of our stuff here to go to the bathroom, or like?
Oh yeah, that's right. And I took my computer, but I left everything else.
But we had to think about it for a few minutes. Like, we probably, and then we looked over, and there's like a whole group of women that just like kept leaving piles and piles of personal items and walking away for half an hour and coming back. And I mean, none of this is like any recommended advice or anything. It's just like, Well, I kind of forgot to like pay attention sometimes.
It's a meditation on the honesty of people, and some people are honest and some people aren't, I guess. But it's polite to make a show of looking away when someone's entering their password in.
Yeah, that much is good advice.
Yeah, I'm gonna blame the acupuncture for this weird mood I'm still in. It has made me really spacey. So I don't know. And again, an article I read was like, your chi can rebalance for up to 24 hours after you have the acupuncture done. But it's been more than 24 hours because I went on Friday and it's Sunday.
Think you're in some kind of withdrawal now?
Maybe. Maybe I'm like so unbalanced that he was just like, oh my god, you need the Whopper treatment. So, and I'm gonna come out of this at the other end as a whole different person.
Shave your head, go up to the top of the mountain.
I have always wanted to shave my head. I've Never had the guts to do it though.
It's free.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe next summer. There's a woman at the gym. I think. Well, I'm not gonna assume. She has a shaven head and she wears a wig. But when she does yoga, she takes off the wig, so she does have like a total shaven head.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you wear a wig, it's easier to put over a shaved head, right?
I guess so.
So maybe that's her.
A little bit of Velcro-y stubbly.
Yeah, because I was gonna say maybe there's a medical issue, but she's doing yoga like 10 times a week, so whatever medical issue, she's pretty strong. But it could just be a fashion choice.
Or some kind of remission.
Yeah, she could be healthy now. I don't know, but a person I know wears a wig and shaves their head.
This is the news of Lujo this week. All right, we're at 45 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Let's start the podcast.
Yeah, do you want to talk about... So, the big news in Peter and I's world is that the place where we worked at for a decade almost...
Oh, yeah.
And where we met... got sold. It was a newspaper and it got sold to new owners. And so
how about a little when did you start it first? You were there when it first opened.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was like October 2003.
Uh-huh.
Or September. I don't know. Fall 2003.
And that was a fresh spanking new
Yeah,
York.
we weren't even putting out issues yet. It was a...
And it was a new kind of...
If you have, like, Metro in your city, ours was an executive from Metro Boston stole the idea and started a different kind of that commuter paper in New York.
Which was like the beginning of the Metro newspaper, but also the end of newspaper and print in general.
Yeah, it was. Point. I mean, the model was to capitalize on the fact that the newspaper readership was shrinking, but there wasn't yet cell phone service on subways. So if you had a subway in your city, maybe you wanted a paper that took 20 minutes to read.
Yeah.
So it was like 200 word stories taken from the AP wires. With a little bit of supplemental original reporting.
Which eventually turned into a series of lists.
Yeah.
The listicle before it was digital.
Yeah, so this was... Peter and I left there to move to China. For many reasons. And
we were there for quite a long time, too.
Yeah. And I think, like, I always wanted
a year
to,
after
like,
you did, and
move on, but other newspaper jobs, I was like, what am I going to work at another newspaper?
Yeah. Well, I left about a year before you did. Started the year after you did.
Yeah.
But I had spent that year looking at finding other print jobs, and having worked in print my whole professional career. Mm-hmm. Spent a year of just going like, oh, this is hopeless. Like, whatever jobs that... I was surprised. I went into that interview, my second interview with the editor, and asked him, how long is this paper going to be open? Like 6 months after it opened, because I was like, why are you starting a newspaper? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So like 6 years later or whatever, when I left, I was like, well, I've always worked in print. What do? I go look for jobs, and there was just absolutely nothing, which was the beginning of the idea of where I joked of like, we should go to China and teach, and after a few months of you being totally frustrated, you just were like, are you kidding?
Yeah, and the day I gave my notice, the managers had just had a big meeting, and my manager told me, like, oh, thank God, because we just had a meeting about, like, potential layoffs. So, like, oh, I'm quitting, and then you're just not going to fill my job again.
And then...
Feels great.
Fairly soon after you left, and we came here, more people left.
Yeah,
and
so...
They consolidated.
By now, a lot of the staff that we had worked with is no longer there 8 years later. But there were a couple of people still working there, and then they got laid off because the new company wants to bring in new management. So it was like, oh, that old place.
Well, it's weird. It's weird to see people that were there when we were there. I mean, one of the things that I don't know if everyone thinks this way, but like, I like to leave a place before it closes down. I don't want to be the last person in the office that's packing up and turning the lights off.
I like to stay after the
and then trash the place.
Down. Yeah. I like to keep showing up for work when like the power's out.
Throw eggs out the window.
Until my desk gets chopped up for firewood. That's how I like to stay in a job.
But having people as you're leaving. Well, you had the HR department gave you a whole like in your. Exit.
Oh, I did an exit interview.
Yeah, which was partially what was she saying to you?
I don't remember.
She was asking you about like why are you going to China?
Well, no, but she said something about like. She was asking me about stuff about what that could be improved, and I mentioned some stuff that could be improved, but she's like, but you're not leaving for another newspaper job, so it's not like you weren't unhappy here, you're moving to China. Like, no, but I'm moving to China because I don't like the whole industry.
Yeah.
I mean, she was for whatever reason, she was dismissing all my concerns because I wasn't going to get a job like that job. And my thought was like, I disliked this job, but in the end, like when I started, it was a great job. But in the end, I really disliked so much about that company that I was like, I'm never getting a job like this again. I have to move to China. And she didn't see that.
Right. But the idea of that industry itself, there's lots of other industries like that back home that are just, I mean, how long are you going to keep grinding it into it till you are the last person throwing your desk on the firewood? Yeah. And not that we were thinking about that 8 years ago of just like, we've got to get the hell out of here before the whole place goes down.
Yeah.
But it is strange to like see that out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not closed, it's just bought by another company.
The last of the people are leaving, but the thinking about like if we were both of us still working there, I mean, we say 8 years, but that's only 8 years. Yeah. As long as we worked there anyways. If I was living in New York right now, with that same experience, working in papers, we couldn't afford to live there anymore. Like, that would be over. That, move back home with your parents kind of thing.
Or move to New Jersey.
Or and work at some kind of little gazette or something until that one dies. Like.
Well, I think it's no less than, like, what, do you want to have a job? Mm-hmm. Capitalism is the worst. Because it is, like, I went into journalism because I liked telling stories, and no one's going to pay you to do creative things that you like. But the closest things for an English major are either journalism or advertising, and I was not going to go into advertising. And then, like, working in journalism, I did learn a lot, and I had a lot of great opportunities, but it wasn't, like, getting me any closer to doing the thing that I wanted to do, or even figuring that out. I may have said this before on the podcast, but before I started working for the paper, I was writing a lot for myself. I don't know if they were any good or whatever, but I was writing a lot of fiction that I liked, and I was pursuing that. And then the day I started was the day I stopped writing for myself, and I really never got back to it until after we left.
Same here.
And, you know, whatever. I had a job, and that was great.
Yeah, and you learned some professional level skills and stuff. And there's
a certain amount of people out in the world who would say, like, what? Who needs art? Why are you going to make art?
Well, that's the main
and that's
problem.
The problem.
Because I have the same thing.
As
writing, I'm a graphic artist, so I'm getting that job because I do art. I take colors and shapes and I make them look interesting. And the only way to do that is working in advertising and journalism and the same kind of stuff. So like that's what all the creative people that get stuck in those jobs have to do is like and next thing you know you're reporting on like either you're doing stories of like how horrible the world is or how shallow the world is.
Right.
Like you're doing fashion or politics or something that just like and at the end of the day you're going home and going like, well, I didn't kill myself today. But I'm not doing any art when I get home either.
Yeah. And I mean, you get to sneak in the stuff you care about every once in a while.
Those little battles that keep it going to next week.
Yeah. But then you also have to write roundups of which celebrities published books this week.
Yeah, the amount of
True story.
the amount of stuff that I knew about the fashion world and celebrities and terrible sides of music that there's no reason I should know any of this, but I could sit in a conversation and talk about what happened on fashion movie runways this week.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that in my head.
Well, and I remember being a young punk of are we making the world worse by the news itself is important and good reporting is important. Digesting important complex issues down into a 200-word story, is that making things worse? And I would argue yes. And I would argue that yes, the world is worse than it was.
Well, when those stories have gone down for that size of a story in a paper, and then in a smaller paper that you can read in 20 minutes on the subway, to something that you can zip by on your phone, to I just need the quick bites that I can flip through at this point. I'm not reading full stories. I'm just reading headlines and the first paragraph. And the last paragraph.
If art is a commodity and information is a commodity, then
but that's our information. That's the stuff people want to read is stuff that they're flipping through and not getting the actual art that you want to do. The stories that are, even those get pushed off.
And that's so for the people making it, that sucks, and for the people consuming it, they're not being challenged and they're not being fed good, healthy. They're getting junk food. Stories. Yeah, good healthy stories. You need 8 good healthy stories a day.
have a carrot story, a basil story.
And so I don't know. I mean, not so. I've been so gloom and doom today, but there's things about the world that are good. But the media landscape is objectively more terrible than it used to be. And that's not what we really wanted to get into all again. What more for us, so moving to China was a kind of reckless, burn it all down, start over again move. But it did enable us, what we knew we would get out of it was the stability of income, because we knew our services were in demand, and actually being who we are, we're going to luck into jobs that provide a nice salary, and also those jobs don't take that much time. Mm-hmm. And so we will get to then relax a little bit into a life that we enjoy.
Well, I certainly, as much as I was aware of things like composting back in New York City, there wasn't any time that I had to, or money to even think about anything like that. Doing anything back in our old life in America was just a matter of getting through it and getting by. Yeah. All the time. No matter how much of a paycheck I was earning, it was still, everything was just you have to get everyone else's work done. Well, and then you don't have anything else left.
As a famous politician said in New York City, the rent is too damn high.
Yeah.
But so here we did find a situation that lets us not do that. And I think there are days when I wake up and go, we have no health insurance in a way that would be recognizable in America. We do have catastrophe insurance, and healthcare is relatively cheap.
But if we continued on our path without doing this,
I would not have made the other choice.
We would not actually have a job or health insurance or anything right now. Yeah, and we'd be out of jobs.
And I feel like some of that old life has conditioned me in bad moments to question, but is what you're making any good? You love what you're doing, and it feels good to do it, but what's that worth? That should be worth everything. That's the thing that's important.
Well, certainly, our bosses would even if you were doing something good on the clock, that you were just like, this is going to be good, this is really going to help this article.
Yeah.
And they say, like, cut that all out.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I don't want to go too hard on them.
well, I mean, on that paper in particular, I mean, I worked at a bunch of places, and they were all very exciting places to start with. Even working
But I guess that's
for the
the nature.
Ninja Turtles. Like, I worked for the Ninja Turtles for like the half a decade. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the pressures of working in a cool place and an upcoming new company that's doing something exciting is really, really hard on everybody.
Well, and the nature of doing work for someone else is that ultimately you're fulfilling their vision.
Yeah.
Which, at a certain point, seems like we only get this one life.
Right.
Sometimes it seems endless, but like 70 years is nothing in comparison to the whole history of the universe. Why would you spend time making another person happy? Which is maybe the most selfish way to put that. But like, why would you devote so much of yourself to making something for somebody else, for making profit for somebody else, for fulfilling someone else's vision? That doesn't, and if that's what makes you, if that's fulfilling to you, then that's okay. But if I didn't find it fulfilling.
So that's where the
So I come back to, what, am I gonna have a job?
the freedom, but also the fear of what we've done being here at this point is at the same time terrifying and yet vindicated, all like in the span of a couple of days.
Because some of those fears we would have had anyway, of like getting hit by a bus as a fear. That's just like, that's part of living in a world with buses.
No more buses.
And that's a control issue that again, living in China has helped me really accept, like, I have much less control over things than I had thought. And so in a mindfulness way of like, once you recognize that control is an illusion, you can let go of that suffering when you feel like things are getting out of control. When you start from a place of like, things are out of control, that's actually like way easier to deal with.
I was just reading in Peter Hessler's Oracle Bones book. He was talking to a Chinese friend of his that was saying, this was like during, like right after 9/11, and they were talking about how economy is going to be affected by this, and his friend had said, like, yeah, no, the Chinese have a saying that, like, I forget what the exact quote is, but it's something like, you're only poor if the person living next door to you is rich.
Sluggishness, lack of energy, the belief that nothing is real, and all of the choices that you've made in life have no meaning. You're suffering from an 𝗖𝗵cie, or existential crisis. There is no hope for an 𝗖𝗵cie. The growing void will claim us all. But you can lie on the floor for a few days and see what that's like. When you're bored of all that despair, have some cake. Or don't have some cake. Nothing matters.
𝗖𝗵cie is not a real recognized abbreviation for existential crisis, because nothing is real, and therefore the act of recognition is a trick of the mind imposed by the desire to perceive all interaction through the lens of time and space. All we can truly know is the current moment, and that's already over. Talk to your doctor if you think that will help.
Oh yeah, I like that.
You don't really, everyone just has a way of like shuffling to like, this is where we're all going to be at this point.
Right.
It isn't a matter of like I need what that is, unless that person is right next door, like putting it in your face.
Right, yeah, because if your peer group is all on the same economic level as you, you're all fine.
Yeah.
No matter what dollar amount you're all making.
Right.
I think that's very wise. Yeah, so the work we've been doing is fun. We put out a lot of videos, a lot of music videos in the last 2 weeks.
Well, this also kind of dovetails nicely into yet another change of Hello Foreigner becoming Not Me.
Yeah.
Because we've taken everything down into another notch of not only we not working in any kind of like mainstream other person's company.
Yeah.
We've taken our own thing that we were building on YouTube and going like, I'm not even, I don't even care about YouTube.
Yeah, so we
anymore.
changed our channel name to Not Here, and from Hello Foreigner, which came from Hello Uncle Foreigner, which has been the name of Peter and I as a creative entity since we landed, basically.
It was like the day or two after that we got here, when we came around a corner, around from our apartment, and a little boy came around the corner and said, "Hello, Uncle Foreigner."
Yeah,
and you said, "That's our name."
You took that. Sometimes it's been a blog, sometimes it's been stories, sometimes it's been an imagined media empire, and it was the name of our YouTube channel. But having so much history with that as a name and as an identity, because it really does feel like Peter and I are Hello Uncle Foreigner as a collective unit.
Mm-hmm.
And you said part of the trouble with selling that name in Reddit and other places online is that it doesn't mean anything to, it means so much to us and it means nothing to other people. And when people see the word foreigner, they bring their own baggage to that table, and so it makes it
even
tough
since
sell.
I was a little kid. The word foreigner is a dirty word in a lot of circles.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not happy about that. And
Yeah.
it's not, I don't think.
And kind
something
of
to shy away from
our
that.
rationale was,
We'll teach them.
well, to have the tagline, we're all foreigners to someone from a different country, but nobody
Wants to hear that.
Nobody went along with us on that journey.
Yeah.
And so that's such a precious
For
thing
some reason
to
that
us.
comes out like we're all slobs in somebody else's house.
Right. And we had the idea to switch the podcast name to Not Here. Peter and Emily are
Yeah,
not
we just kind of
here.
like bungled into it, like we said almost the same thing at the same time and went, that's good enough.
Yeah, and we like that for all kinds of reasons, including like our passive engagement with the world. And then you had the idea, what if it's not just the podcast? What if it's the whole YouTube project is just called Not Here? To go along with our new, even more hands-off attitude towards, like, when we started YouTube, we were like, we're going to do it right, we're going to publish to the minute, every day, we'll have the schedule, we'll have, our videos will be structured like this, da-da-da, and we did that for quite a while.
Yeah, the better part of a year. We followed all
And I
the
think-
rules and we watched all the Academy videos.
And we tried to approach it as if we were a production company working for TBS with a national campaign that we wanted to like establish this branding and recognizability and blah blah blah. And that, I think it was helpful to try working like that, because that
really
gave us
helped
like a
learn.
lot of discipline, and it helped us moving through periods where we're like, we don't know what we're doing, but let's keep going anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did a lot of experimentation of process in that time, whereas now what we're focusing on is experimentation of form, which is to totally let go of the idea that we might be any kind of cohesive unit and need a national campaign to have people like identify this as an entity, Hello
Yeah.
Foreigner as an entity. Rather, we're focusing on video to video, trying out different creative ideas that make us laugh. Like, we're working on some scripts right now that are gonna kind of push us in a new direction, which is really exciting. And to kind of give ourselves that permission to go that way,
Something with branding.
we've let
is
go
so-
of Hello Foreigner, because Hello Foreigner, Hello Uncle Foreigner is like in our hearts. Not Here, but this is a thing, let's put it Not Here.
Something about branding that does make it so precious, but also so personally professional, because you're like thinking about this in a way that like this has got to be ready when somebody comes along and wants to do some kind of affiliate with you.
Oh
or
yeah, we were
something.
like running next to the train so we could hop on when we were
Right.
lined up with a door.
Right.
And now we don't need to spend our energies that way. Now
Right.
we're kind of meandering through a field.
We
That's
well,
a metaphor.
we learned where the train is going and we're not happy about it.
Yeah, we don't even want to get on that train anymore.
Right.
This field is really nice.
Right, and there's fundamentally we can put our logos in the right places and have everything matched up where it's supposed to go at the right time and everything. But we're not going to actually ever be able to put out that kind of content that is expected of people that want to sell stuff.
And just
we're not going to be successful at it. So what we learned from doing that process is that this is how this works. Great.
Yeah.
We got our Instagram set up, we got our Bandcamp set up, we've got all of our different logos, and our studio everything is a working force. Mm-hmm. And then to get to that point and say well, let's use that force to do exactly what we want, and forget about we're branding in case somebody comes along and wants us to sell hats for them.
Right.
We never wanted to sell hats, but we were there just in case to be ready for it.
Right. Well, because who we are, what we want to talk about, and the way we want to talk about it is never going to take YouTube by storm.
Right.
And even with respect, Donald Glover came from a YouTube comedy troupe, and he's amazing, but we're not going to be that, and we're not going to be Bo Burnham, and we're not.
I've never actually seen any of his YouTube stuff. It apparently isn't.
They're very silly.
Yeah, it can't be that amazing where people are passing him around decades later, being this man is a genius. Go watch his movies.
And the things that catch fire, we're not even interested in catching fire. It's not even we're the wrong thing to catch fire. I don't want 1 million fans.
Well, and the more time
too much pressure.
Now that we've learned how the cogs work, the more time that we spend trying to pursue that means the less time that we're spending on actually working on what we actually want to do.
Yeah.
Stopping trying to figure out how do we explain China back to the West, because when we started we thought well, what do? We'll make food videos or culture videos or something like that, and realize that we're not doing that even when we think we're doing that.
And the reason, we talk about this so much, but the reason that we keep talking about our goal is creativity, our goal is not 1 million followers, is because the whole YouTube machine is designed as a social media experience to get you to buy into this. More is better, more is better, more time is better, more engagement is better, more eyeballs is better. Mm-hmm. And that's not actually the goals that we set for ourselves, but using YouTube as a distribution platform means that idea keeps getting put back in our head, and we have to keep dismissing it. Because that's not our goal. Our goal is to make these, we're working on a piece. Let's write it, let's film it, let's make it come out how we want it. That's the goal, and it's really hard to keep your eye on that prize. Yeah,
because everyone is.
So we have this therapy session every week, every other week now.
Everything turns you back to, as soon as you're all right, we're not doing that, and then you watch a couple of videos, you read an article, something, and you're oh crap, I need to go check out this website and maybe download this software, or maybe we need this kind of app or something. I should get back to doing more Instagrams or something.
Yeah, let's redo the thumbnails for 500 times.
Yes, it's hard not to get redirected.
Yeah.
In this fast-paced stream.
There's good stuff about the platform. One being it's a free distribution for videos, but also we have actually found some people that we are simpatico with and that we like talking to. Mm-hmm. Rooftops of America. I did not actually write this to your comment. This is where I'm so bad at social media. But one of our Rooftops of America friend follower wrote.
That's the name of his channel, his YouTube channel.
Wrote in response to a video where I was talking about giving myself permission to write. And he said that he didn't ask for permission, but lots of people offered unsolicited advice not to do it, which I think I loved that. I loved hearing that, and I should have written back. Sorry, dude.
Well, by the time this comes out, you might have.
That's true. But getting to talk with people who are on the same wavelength as us, especially because in Luzhou, as a small town, it's hard in any small town, not even if it's foreign from your place of origin, to find the people who vibrate on your wavelength. So that is only a positive, that the internet gives us access to more people who like the same weird, specialized things that we do.
Right.
So it is you can't just throw out YouTube altogether, or we can't.
The amount of niche people that I found that I enjoy their work on a daily, weekly, whatever basis from YouTube is, I mean, a few of them are fairly big, but I mean, most of them are pretty darn small at what they do. It's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like thinking, like, if I were to start my own side channel that was just the Peter YouTube station channel, like, no matter what I decided,
Would you have me on as a guest?
I could have you on a guest, but you probably wouldn't want to talk about comic books or Zappa. That's probably the main things I would talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But even that itself would be like, I could say, like, I talk about comic books and Zappa. And
That's already a crowded niche.
well, but it's also not, though, in that there would be some people who would go, that's my channel. A tiny amount of people would be like, that is where I am so excited to tune in every week to find out what's going on here. A couple more people would be like, get rid of the comic books and just talk about Zappa. And then a billion more people would be, get rid of the Zappa and just talk about comic books. But there's already a billion people talking about comic books out there, so my little niche of whatever that would be,
Yeah.
I would be far more popular than we are now just because I'm talking about whatever, Captain America.
Other people's work.
Right. But if that was I couldn't even focus on, like, this is my channel about me. And it's not that those are the only two things in my life, it's Marvel Comics and Zappa. But if I even said that those are my two things, like, I would fray almost instantly as soon as I started that channel with, like, well, here's an XTC playlist, and here's Jethro Tull playlist, or something like that. And these are comic books not by Marvel. All of a sudden, your audience goes all over the place. So, trying to find, like, anything, like we said, with tying us into, like, are we a China podcast? Like, that really kneecaps us in any kind of goal that we're like, well, what do you talk about? Like, I guess we talk about China the most because we live here.
Well, and that's the inherent problem of genre, is like, to organize information or creative products or whatever, consumers, audiences do need some kind of structure. Like, if you went into a bookstore and all the books were just jumbled up on the floor, I mean, there's a certain kind of book lover, myself included, who would still love that bookstore.
This is the most delicious salad I've ever seen.
Yeah, but for the most part, if you're looking for a book, you want to, like, get pointed in the direction of, like, this is a sci-fi adventure and this is whatever. But then once you, like, make sci-fi a genre, that's a loaded example. I don't know if anybody knows about the sad puppies. But then you have gatekeepers who say this is sci-fi, this isn't sci-fi. And then if you are an aspiring writer who wants to have some kind of sci-fi elements but go in a little bit of a different direction, it's not recognizable to the people who've said, but sci-fi is this. And I think that was our problem with, like, China vlogging is already a genre, and we wanted to not do it the same way that everybody else.
And those genres,
because the conventions are helpful. That's why we have them, but then they are also very limiting.
those genres themselves are constantly changing waves of like I have old stuff. Like, I got kicked off the lo-fi Reddit because I put lo-fi in there. What is exactly the beginning of lo-fi, of using old 4-track Tascam analog recording material, back when lo-fi was like described as like Sebadoh and Lou Barlow and these like artists that are just sitting in their bedrooms like with boom boxes.
Yeah.
It was lo-fi because you were using speakers and amplifiers taped at the same time, and it sounded horrible. And now, so I was like, oh, lo-fi, I'll stick some music in there, that'll be cool. And they're like, sorry, this doesn't, it doesn't qualify.
Lo-fi is now a branch of hip-hop.
It's a branch of hip-hop that is like, I mean, it's just computer music that has like a filter over that makes it sound like poppy. So it's like you've got like crackles and pops over some like vaporwave, and that's lo-fi. Like that is so not. That's the opposite of low. Like,
so that's a case of definition shift.
Yeah.
And then that leads to
by the time that
confusion.
Like changes like of, hey, we'll go over here. We belong in this area. Like, well, no, that was last year. Oh.
And that's all to say, like, we're stepping away from trying to fit in anywhere, and that's the name Not Here is kind of reflective of, like, in a deeper sense that you and I have, like, always felt like outsiders. And not, like, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my life. Like, I am not a joiner. So it's, like, it's been nice to be on the outside and observe, because that's also, as we've talked about in the past, like, the creepy writer tendency. Like, I like sitting back and watching everyone. That's cool to me.
And the ideas that we're working on are closer to the things that we ever wanted to do since we've started this YouTube project.
Yeah, and then so to really let go, to define it as undefined.
And even,
I mean, we'll see where that goes.
Even within that, though, we've set up our own structural paths of this kind of work goes here and this kind of work goes, like, we have the structure down of what actually goes into that, but without like trying to be like, well, this one has to cater to this kind of audience or this one has.
Well, and because where it has practical applications is to remove one more barrier of saying no because it doesn't fit something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's a good idea, but blah blah blah. If it's a good idea, we're trying to pursue it no matter what. Now.
Which is what it comes down to, is that the only thing that's restricting us isn't really so much that YouTube is YouTube is such a shithole, and so is modern Western culture, and we're stuck with fighting off terrible knockoffs of hip-hop movie stars or something like that. Like, YouTube says, we don't give a shit, we're not going to promote you. But here's all the bandwidth you want. It's us that are not actually doing exactly what we want, because we're thinking like, oh, no one's going to watch this, so we should probably make it, maybe put in a couple little hints there of like, if you're ordering hot, spicy food at a Chinese restaurant.
Well, because to catastrophize, like, what if no one watches us ever?
Mm-hmm.
Do we go move back to New York and like get media jobs again now with like a huge gap in our resumes? No, if the work we've done is work that we're proud of, then that's still a success, and that's a good life.
Right. Yeah. What would, with some half-assed service journalism that you would put together that is out of date in 2 months?
Yeah.
What good is that? Whereas in the stuff that we have done is like, that was pretty cool that time that we did that one shoot.
Yeah.
That's up there. Get to live with that. Proud of that work.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, and to go back and look at it like, we did a good job.
Good job, Not Here.
And so let's quickly mention 2 videos.
Okay.
So we did put out a lot of music videos this week. They're great. Go watch them. The videos we want to talk about are, one is 𝗣𝘂 and one is The Art of Saving Face, which is, 𝗣𝘂 is a Peter's character. It's an exercise in misinformation. And so that was just us goofing around trying to be funny. And we had to go shopping for a prop for maybe the first time. Oh, that's right. We've bought props before, but we did go shopping to buy this little. Students use them to keep their bus cards in, a lanyard and a laminated thing. But we just were like goofing around to see. It's almost trolling, especially titling it "How to Get a Chinese Visa," because the information in it is so unhelpful. But it's very quickly, obviously unhelpful. So we're hoping, like, if you stumble onto this while you're really looking at it, you get a visa, you at least get a little laugh out of it, and then like get back to your day.
Well, that is talking about having some kind of structure in not having structure. That that's one character area that we enjoy writing.
Yeah.
This kind of satire of a character.
And it's giving me, so Peter and I are experimenting with different permutations of he writes something, I write something, we write something together, and then kind of recently, yesterday, decided that the Peter character, I'm gonna take that on as like an exploratory writing challenge, and it's interesting to have a character as a focus, and now I get to see like what happens when I put him in these different situations. So that's Peter.
Well, in our bigger project, like we've talked about, that we're working on a movie.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, another aspect of Not Me as a channel is working on our skills for a bigger project.
Yeah.
So like writing a character, a lot of what we've done up to this point is like, it's sort of a quasi vlog, so it's sort of, it's unfocused as to like who's telling a story or why we're telling a story or what we're telling a story about. This is actually like, we've got a character that we enjoy and we think other people enjoy, and let's write that character and see what we can explore with the character.
Yeah, and
so it helps with the bigger projects of like, how do we breathe a character into life? Because
then we've also figured out a new process, or not new, but like we've nailed down a process for writing collaboratively that we'll probably talk about more when we've finished one of those projects and bring them to the screen. But full disclosure, I'm reading a book called Improv for Writers to get me into this space of like creation. And if I did have the idea to, if there was an improv troupe in Luzhou, I would join them. If there's one in Chengdu, let me know, and I might travel up to Chengdu to try it out. Because getting into the moment and letting ideas out, I think is a good, it's working as an exercise for me right now. And so like it's pure play to write now for Peter's character and for my character as well. Because my character who is still like in development, but we wrote this piece called The Art of Saving Face, which is my version of beauty advice to you, which is like aggressively mean. And I think both of them are kind of our frustration with monologuing. And I think writing these directly led to like, we like these and we think they came out good, but like we need a different process for writing, because we can't just be mean about other people, the way other people live their life all the time. That's not the writing we want to do. And the challenge there was to see if we could be funny about it, and I think we did. So those are pieces that are transitional pieces, I would call them.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I would say so. In that spirit of what we're trying to do now with our channel is making it an exercise of playing,
because those pieces
how to develop skills and have fun, and not really worry about like, is this hitting the algorithm or anything.
And those pieces are satire, not of anyone specific, but more of like a kind of attitudes that we see. And satire is the lazy man's wit. And that doesn't mean I even don't enjoy watching satire. Right. But as from a writing perspective, we made those pieces. They did their job. We achieved our goals with them, but it's actually not a direction. We'd like to go in a different direction. So that's what,
and some of us.
So go watch those pieces that we're not going to do anymore.
Some of it too is, and where those characters are going to go they're part of not just satire, but they're us too. So.
And that's the part that's more interesting to us, is to develop what's unique about them rather than like what's laughable about other people. Right.
And doing them, then you would say like, well, why don't you just do a vlog? But just flat out doing a vlog without like actually writing and exploring language and fun words and bringing things into taking mundane things, like, you know, you could tell somebody that you bought a vacuum cleaner.
Right. Well, and this is our vlog. This is where we share our stories from our real life, and this is the format in which we like doing that.
But finding a fun way to, I mean, because what is a sitcom or a drama, writers aren't making up absolutely insane, surreal situations that have never happened. Like, the funnier it is, the closer it is to what's happened. You just change names and situations to amp up the funny. And
even like The Good Place, which is happening in a supposed afterlife with supernatural things happening, the conflicts are grounded in real human interaction, and even the ideas they're exploring are like from philosophy. It's not like Michael Schur is making up completely new worlds and cosmologies.
That opening scene this week where they were playing Pictionary or something.
Yeah.
They had like a wild, insane looking giraffe, and then the thought of a horse, and have that to come alive as a horror was a surreal, wild thing. But the actual joke is like not being able to draw a real horse.
And like how Pictionary as a social party game is sometimes excruciating for some people. But I was just listening to an episode of To the Best of Our Knowledge, which is a podcast by Wisconsin Public Radio, and they had a whole episode about creativity and neurologically how creativity happens. And they talked to this one researcher who says that the areas of creativity and the areas of memory in the brain have either a lot of overlap or are completely the same areas. And so that with that in mind, that creativity, you can't entirely create something that has not existed in your consciousness ever before. I mean, it can be like, I had a nightmare about a real creepy doll the other night, and it's definitely not a face I've ever seen, but I've seen dolls before, and I've seen creepy faces before.
You didn't make up dolls.
And
that would be a weird dream to wake up and proclaim that I've made up an idea.
Right.
It's a small human.
And like down to like she had a face like humans have. But what was creative about it is like all those parts combined into this new idea, but it could never be something that like I had never had experience of before in my life.
Right.
Which,
So like,
I mean that's a theorem. That's not for sure, but it makes a lot of sense to me.
like when you try to read a book in a dream and you like just keep reading the same page and you're like, why can't I get out? I know how to read. I swear I know how to read.
Yeah.
Why can't I get past the sentence?
But and anything you make up by necessity has to somehow be based in a reality that you've understood.
And what we found is that,
Or like how you understand that reality could be changed, I guess.
one thing we found in these writing exercises and acting and filming exercises, that initial thought that is like a wild joke that you can just have off the cuff until you start working on the process to bring it to life. That's funny to say it, and then you start working on it and you're like, well, that's not nearly enough. Now we need to add more to that to make it punch through. It's like when you see like, whoever, Tom Cruise, and not that I've seen Tom Cruise in real life, but so you look bigger on screen is always in stories comes straight through, that you're not really in real life. Everything is probably this small or this interesting. Your job as somebody who's writing, putting something into screen, putting into somebody's ear, is to make it seem like I've just woken up from an amazing, fantastic dream that's blown my mind, as opposed to I just woke up and I was tired. It's not a very good story.
Right. Well, we just wrote a thing 2 days ago that I'm so excited about, but I don't want to like get too into because you'll see it like a month from now. But the writing process was based on a real moment that happened to Peter and I. But like if you had also been there and filmed the moment or had a god's eye view of what was happening, that would not have been like through the process of writing it. We had to find like, we have to like narrow down all these points of view, and to get a moment that happened in 2 seconds, it's actually like a 2 or 3 minute scene now to like have the payoff that we just instantly felt. But part of that is we have to establish who the character is in that moment and why you would want to be with him and what is going through his mind while the incident is happening. There's all this stuff of like just having the information. And this is why reality TV turned so sensationalist, is because just seeing real life unfold with access to all the data is not actually interesting. What narrative does, what story does, is focus you in on the part that is going to give you some payoff in the end.
So not only does it have to be amped up from the beginning, when your producers and writers are, why do you have writers on a reality show?
Right.
Because things need to be judged, and then by the end of it, like even if you were to see, even right out of the writing, the editing, just on film without the soundtrack to it, you'd be, this is pretty dull. It's not until like if you listen to somebody who does the composition for the sound organization and music to these things, talk about like how their writing is just like like the amount of action being jabbed into your ears to hit with your eye to have to show you what happened in real life.
But also
it's amazing in the editing room how much of that has to come through the screen. Otherwise, you're just watching images without any context.
Yeah. Well, because what good media is doing is like taking your brain by the hand and walking you through point by point the idea that you want to convey. And like, because I would say there is a way to do that soundtracking, that noise making to distract from the fact that what you're watching isn't very good, but it seems compelling because you have these sound effects. But like something like our video shower, when you showed me the cut without the soundtrack, it was like, is this what it is? And then like once
I don't remember writing this boring and performing.
Once the soundtrack was in place, it did feel like a more complete piece. And I don't think that's a trick. I don't think that's always a trick. Is that, but like the sound that you're processing, or even when a director chooses not to have sound happening in the background, that's a specific choice because that's part of the experience of the media you're watching.
Yeah.
And so if it's missing, then something is missing.
Right. It's basically being able to tell a good story. Everyone likes to think that they can tell a good story until everyone sits around at the campfire and like people trade stories and somebody is like, so oh my god, it was so amazing. So first I'm like here and they're like there, and you're like, well, where are you? You know, the good storyteller in every group is an obvious favorite for every group of friends. That they're like, oh, they're going to be able to let him tell the story because he's good at it.
And often, if you pay close attention, they are embroidering those stories in some way. It's not documentary.
Certainly.
Because stories are better when they're faked from real life. Real life is pretty boring.
The person that can't tell the story is just like the lovable dummy. The person that can tell the story and embellish is everyone's favorite. And the most annoying person is the person that sits next to them and goes like, actually, it really wasn't like that. This actually happened.
Oh, is that really what you said?
Yeah. That you're not even being honest about this. Like, well, I can tell you a boring story if you like.
So maybe
sound effects.
Maybe that's a good note to end on. Noodles to you.